Happy playoffs, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Picks with David. Thanks for joining me, and we've got 6 great playoff game matchups to talk about today. And so let's begin with an NFC West matchup where the Seahawks and the 49ers face off. The 9-8 Seattle Seahawks take on the NFC West champions, the 13-4 San Francisco 49ers. Every game on Super Wildcard weekend is a rematch from the regular season. And this will be the third time that the Seahawks have played the 49ers this year. Both teams have had success offensively and defensively against one another, but the 49ers have dominated the competition this year. The Seahawks come in and they had to win to get in and needed help from the Detroit Lions beating the Green Bay Packers in order to make the playoffs. The 49ers, clearly the best team in the NFC West, which a lot of people thought would be the best division in the NFC before the season began. Now, the 49ers have overcome a lot of hurdles throughout the year, including the loss of 2 of their 3 quarterbacks. Brock Purdy will start for the 49ers as the first rookie quarterback drafted in the 7th round to start an NFL playoff game in 70 years. So he's got a lot of pressure on him, but he's got great players and a wonderful defense behind him to help them overcome Seattle. They're going to have Deebo Samuel. They're going to have Christian McCaffrey, Brandon Ayuk. The defense is healthy, and I personally think that the 49ers are the favorite in the NFC, despite not getting the first round bye. Looking at the Seattle Seahawks, throughout the season, they began the year on the basis of their defense and their running game. And throughout the year, Geno Smith has really come on as a passer to the point where he made the Pro Bowl. So these two teams, being in the same division, really know each other very well. I think it will come down to probably the fourth quarter, but I like the 49ers to win the game and advance to the divisional playoff round. Game number 2 on Saturday is the 10-7 Los Angeles Chargers at the AFC South champion and 9-8 Jacksonville Jaguars. Our first bit of information in this particular game is that Mike Williams was injured and is probably out for the playoffs due to some structural hurt in his back. Now that could be on the coach, Brandon Staley, and he probably needs to win this game to save his job, as things like what happened last week just can't happen when you didn't need to play your starters going into the final week of the season. Now, they've got themselves a pretty decent defense because of Staley's tutelage. They've got a great pass rush between Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack, who was added in the offseason. Really good secondary players such as Derwin James. And when you look at this offense, they have weapons all over the field. Now, I really don't think that the loss of Mike Williams is going to affect the Chargers that much. During the season, both their top wide receivers were hurt for most of the year, and the backups in DeAndre Carter and Joshua Palmer specifically really stepped up and made big plays for quarterback Justin Herbert. I expect them to run the ball well with Austin Eckler. He is a playmaker both out of the backfield and running up through the middle. He'll make some big plays against this Jacksonville defense that is, a playoff caliber defense, but not one of the better ones in the league. When you look at the Jacksonville Jaguars, Trevor Lawrence has really come on. He's starting to trust all of his receivers to get the ball down to them down the field. They've got Travis Etienne and JaMychal Hasty running the football. One of the big players on offense this season has been their tight end, Evan Ingram. And I expect that he'll make some plays against what I think is a little bit of a weak linebacking core for the Los Angeles Chargers. I think this is going to be a fantastic game. The Chargers have some payback in mind here in the playoffs, as the Jags came to SoFi Stadium earlier in the year and demolished the Chargers in the regular season. Now, granted, the team was injured, wasn't at full strength, and they probably underestimated Jacksonville early on in the year. There won't be any underestimation this time, as you've got yourself a playoff winning coach in Doug Peterson. He's got the experience, but he's got a very young team. There's a lot of veterans on the team for the Chargers, and I think that may be the difference, as I'm going to take the Jacksonville Jaguars to go down to the Los Angeles Chargers on Wildcard Saturday. Wildcard weekend continues with the third game of the weekend on Sunday, as we've got the Miami Dolphins at 9-8 take on the AFC East champions 13-3 Buffalo Bills. These two teams split their matchups during the regular season. Early on, Buffalo come away with a loss against the Miami Dolphins, and then later on, it was a high-powered offense between the two of them that ended in a 3-point win for Buffalo. Now, the Miami Dolphins are going to be without Tua Tagovailoa at quarterback, and when he started, the offense was dynamic. They played very well with all of their new additions, including Tyreek Hill. And, I really thought that this team would have the opportunity, and of course they do, to move on in the playoffs and have a phenomenal year. Now, they made the playoffs for the first time since 2016, which got to be a boon in the cap of head coach Mike McDaniel. But he's playing against a team that was favored to win it all at the beginning of this season in the Buffalo Bills. The Bills have a lot to play for. They probably feel slighted because they did not get the number one seed because of the game between the Cincinnati Bengals and themselves. They feel like they're probably the best team in the AFC, having beaten the Kansas City Chiefs, who is the number one seed. Buffalo has a lot to prove as the end of the season here. Their offense has not been hitting on all cylinders like it did earlier in the season. Now, the defense is weakened because they lost Von Miller at midseason. He was the key to their pass rush. They still have quite a few good pass rushers to get to the quarterback, and Skylar Thompson will be the second quarterback, drafted in the 7th round, to start a playoff game in 70 years as he follows Brock Purdy the day before. Now, I like the fact that Miami will try to probably run the football. They've got to keep the pass rush off of Skylar Thompson. They're going to have to make some quick pass throws to, Gesicki, the tight end. Get the ball out quickly to Tyreek Hill and to Jalen Waddle. And their defense is going to have to hold up good against this Buffalo high-powered offense. And so, I see that the Buffalo Bills here, they're playing at home. They have, a lot of pressure on them, but, they've got something to play for. They have redemption from the year before. They also are probably going to have either some form of a announcement on, the big screen before the game, or perhaps DeMar Hamlin may even be at the game. But between all of that, I really think that Buffalo is the better team in this situation. Because Miami is missing their starting quarterback, I think Buffalo's defense has been one of the best in the league this year, and I think it'll help make the difference as the Buffalo Bills advance to the second round of the playoffs next week. The middle game on Sunday, you've got the 9-7-1 New York Giants facing the NFC North champions, the 13-4 Minnesota Vikings. The New York Giants started this season red hot and came out of the gates with a big winning streak to start the year. They beat playoff teams such as the Tennessee Titans and faced off well against other teams along the stretch. But down the stretch, in the middle, they had a bit of a lull. Saquon Barkley was hurt for a few weeks. Daniel Jones looked like a completely different quarterback because the pass rush was getting to him. And they faded down the stretch before rebounding to make the playoffs at the end. The Minnesota Vikings had their best season in a couple of years and started the year off with a dynamic win over the Green Bay Packers. Throughout the year, they played some tough competition and even managed to win in Buffalo this year. But these two teams clashed in the regular season, and Minnesota had to win the game at the gun by a field goal. This is going to be a very similar game. I think both teams are going to want to run the football. This is the first year under first-year head coaches for both teams, and so you don't know what either team is going to do when it comes to maybe mixing it up, maybe some trick plays here and there as they try to win their first playoff game as a head coach. Brian Daboll came over from the Buffalo Bills, and you can see his influence on their offense as they try to run the football. They've run Danny Dimes. Daniel Jones has started to use his legs. It's helped them pick up a couple wins here near the end of the year as the defense has come back to earth a little bit throughout the season when they were dominating early in the season. For the Minnesota Vikings, what you have is a team that has really struggled to run the football over the last few weeks of the year. Dalvin Cook hasn't scored a touchdown in a few weeks, and so they're really concentrating their offense on getting the ball to Justin Jefferson a lot. Cousins had another, very steady, very positive season. A lot of people don't think that he is an elite quarterback, and he probably is not. But he's definitely one of the best 10 in the NFL because of his ability to complete passes at a high percentage. He comes out with big yardage, and he doesn't turn the football over that often. So I think that if both teams try to run the football like they did a few weeks ago, I think that the Giants have a better opportunity running the football than they do passing, but the Vikings have a better opportunity at throwing the ball than they do at running. But if Dalvin Cook comes alive, perhaps with the screen game, some draws, if he can make some hay running the football, I'm going to take the Minnesota Vikings to beat the New York Giants on Wildcard Sunday. Wildcard Sunday wraps up with an AFC North battle on Sunday Night Football on NBC. You've got the Baltimore Ravens at 10-7 challenging the 12-4 and AFC North champion Cincinnati Bengals. These two teams just played last week in the regular season. They're without Lamar Jackson in Baltimore, probably going to be without Tyler Huntley, and therefore they're going to start Anthony Brown again at quarterback. Cincinnati got a good taste of what Baltimore had to offer under these circumstances, and I think that as these teams split in the regular season, Baltimore was able to do so much more when they had Lamar Jackson than they were able to without. But the Baltimore Ravens hung in there this last week despite being down some of their best players. I think that both teams are going to fight to the bitter end, but I just don't see how the Cincinnati Bengals at full strength can lose to the Baltimore Ravens on Sunday Night Football. And so I'm going to take the Cincinnati Bengals to win the game and advance to play against Buffalo in the divisional playoff round. Despite having an 8-9 record, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers won the NFC South, and they're going to welcome in the 12-5 Dallas Cowboys. Both these teams faced each other in Week 1 of the NFL season. It was the opposite ends of the spectrum as Tampa Bay visited Dallas for the opening, game of the season. And during that time, Tampa Bay, they looked like world beaters as they won the game 19-3. Dak Prescott got hurt, but the tables have turned. Down the stretch, the Cowboys played great. They had Cooper Rush come in and fill in for several games while Dak thumb was being healed up, and so now they're at full strength and healthy to play against a Tampa Bay team on the road here. And for me, I look at this game, Tampa has faded down the stretch. They played, games where they should have easily won, but I think that age has started to catch up to some of their players. Not necessarily Tom Brady, but their receiving core. They've had a weak offensive line all season long. Dallas comes into town off an embarrassing loss, the final game of the season, against the Washington Commanders. And a team with this kind of talent, after being embarrassed like that, is really going to have something to prove in the opening game of the playoffs. They've been the better team all season long, with the exception of the first couple weeks of the year where they did lose to Tampa. But Tampa has, not improved themselves throughout the year. They have a hard time running the football. Tom Brady's been out of sync with his receivers despite having played with these guys for a couple of years. I think that when it all comes down to it, the defense and the running game of the Dallas Cowboys is going to overwhelm the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And on Monday Night Football, the wild card version, I'm going to take the Dallas Cowboys to win the game and advance to the next round. A quick look at the playoff bracket as we go forward here in Super Wildcard Weekend. I really think that if all of the games turn out the way I have predicted, we're going to see the Kansas City Chiefs square off against the Los Angeles Chargers. We're going to see Buffalo and Cincinnati in a rematch of a game that didn't never really get played. You're going to have the Dallas Cowboys face off against division rival Philadelphia Eagles, and the Vikings will go into San Francisco, all in the divisional playoff round, with those teams having a chance to make it to the AFC and NFC championship games. A playoff edition of Picks with David in the books once again. Super Wild Card Weekend. Really looking forward to the playoffs here. And so be sure to join me again next Saturday as we review the NFC and AFC divisional playoff matchups right here on Picks with David. Thanks again. Be sure to like and subscribe my videos if you want to don't miss anything. And we'll see you on our next one.